I, 25F, my friend, 24M, told my boyfriend, 25M, we were having an affair but we're not. Boyfriend doesn't believe me. I want to say to start off with that I realize how messed up a situation this is, and I understand why my boyfriend would be upset and even suspicious, but I can't believe he doesn't trust me. So, I've been with my BF, Paul, for 3 years. In the beginning of our relationship, Paul had some issues with trust. He had been cheated on in the past. I made it clear right away that I had never cheated on anyone, that I would not, and that I understood if he had trust issues from the past, but that it was a deal breaker to me to be with someone who couldn't trust me. He has, since those early days, been really good about it, and throughout our 3 years together, I think I have earned his trust. I have always been honest with him and never cheated on him. He's asked to see conversations of mine that I've had with male friends twice over those 3 years, and I've obliged. The second time, however, I made it clear to him that I was very unhappy to be treated as though I was acting suspiciously and did not deserve privacy with my friends when he had no reason at all to think I was being shady. I said that if he didn't trust me because of something I had said or done, I was 100% happy to have a conversation about that, to discuss it, and to address any issues he had. But if I had done literally nothing to cause suspicion, then I expected him to trust me. He agreed with me, said that I had done nothing, and never asked again. Once of those conversations he asked about was with my friend Roger. Roger had, 2 years before I started dating Paul, confessed feelings of love for me. I told him I wasn't interested, and that was that. By the time I was seeing Paul, I had absolutely no reason to think things were anything but platonic between Roger and myself. A week ago, Roger and I got together for coffee. Again, I want to stress that before this happened I had literally no reason at all to think he had held on to those feelings. At the cafe, Roger suddenly went on this impassioned monologue about how much he still loved me, how Paul was a terrible boyfriend and I should dump him and be with Roger, how loyal Roger was, how perfect we were together, etc. I was pretty much silent through this whole speech because I was so surprised and uncomfortable. But when he stopped I told him, probably not as strongly as I should have, but I didn't know what to do, that I loved Paul, that I was absolutely not leaving Paul, and that I needed to go home immediately. I was shaken up by the whole thing, so I took my time getting home to calm down. But, by the time I got home, I found that Roger had sent a long, utterly insane FB message to Paul detailing how much he loved me, that we were destined to be together, and heavily implying, but not outright stating, that Roger and I had been carrying on an affair for weeks. I don't know why he did this. I have no explanation. Paul believes it completely. He has listened to my explanation of things, but thinks I am lying. He doesn't want to see me or talk to me at all anymore. I'm completely devastated that Paul would believe this FB message over me. I'm horrified that my relationship with him has ended like this. I'm embarrassed that now I'm being seen as a cheater and a slut who slept around on Paul. I'm utterly hateful toward Roger. It's been a week and I can't convince Paul to talk to me. I know he had those trust issues in the past, but I really believed we were long past them. What do I do? Comments, 15-3-23. I think your answer is kind of nested in what you wrote. You find it a deal breaker if someone is unable to trust you, your boyfriend, in the context of my word versus their situation, without there being any evidence besides Roger's word to suggest you were cheating, and with this set against your stated position that you haven't ever done so, has chosen to believe someone else over you. It seems he does not trust you, and you've just said yourself what you decided the consequences of that would be. Going crazy 1 2 3 4 5 6. I didn't think of it this way until you put it so clearly. I guess you're right. Even if I spoke to Paul now, I would always remember that he didn't believe me or trust me. I'd always be scared of it happening again. Code of Verity, do hold on to that. You've been together 3 years, and all it took was a single FB message to make him completely believe that you've been cheating? He's insecure and doesn't trust you, and that's what's doomed the relationship, not anything you've done. I'd remove any trace of both of them from your life and move on. You deserve so much better than this. Edit. Just want to add, the fact that Roger said that he's in love with you to Paul makes this even more unbelievable, to me. He gets a message from a guy who is obviously obsessed with you and he decides to trust him over you. I'd be pissed if that was me. Roger obviously has every reason to try and break the two of you up. Shit-flinging monkey, are you kidding me? If it was the other way around and she got a Facebook message from someone who was previously in love with her, so, this whole sub would be screaming not to trust him. I agree that this is a deal breaker for her, but you can't dismiss her boyfriend's feelings that easily. None of this is your fault. Your friend is nutty. However, I think the lesson here is when a friend declares feelings for you, it is smarter not to maintain that relationship. Everybody is not as weird as your friend, who I hope you are now not speaking to, but it is at least awkward. I don't think you can do much of anything except hope Paul will come around. I haven't had any contact at all with Roger, and I don't think I could ever forgive him. Weirdly enough, Roger has not at all attempted to contact me since this happened. He sent that FB message to Paul and now has gone totally silent and not attempted to contact either me or Paul. Brawlacaustic, so this guy professed his love and you kept him around the last few years? Do you keep any of these other men hovering around you waiting for their chance? I don't blame your boyfriend. If I got that message, it would take a lot of convincing that it wasn't true. For someone to confess to an affair that didn't happen is quite rare indeed, and even if untrue, I'd be mad that I had to be involved in spillover drama from your friends. Lady Bosie, I don't blame her boyfriend for his reaction because most people don't do crazy things like pretend they had an affair with someone. But, I don't think it was necessarily wrong for her to continue being friends with this guy. A friend once professed his love to me, I turned him down. We kept our distance for a little, then had some awkward interactions, then went back to being friends. We were fine for years and he never tried to sabotage any of my relationships. We lived happily ever after, as friends, in relationships with other people. I think most normal people tend to move on after rejection. I definitely hear what you're saying, but I just want to point out I never believed feelings would magically evaporate. Roger said he loved me 5 years ago. We were distant from each other for about a year after he told me he loved me. Then reconnected through mutual friends, and were friends for a year before I dated Paul. During that year, he acted totally platonically around me, and I guess I thought he had had enough time to get over his feelings. He's been totally platonic as well for the 3 years I've been with Paul. Obviously I was wrong, and you are right about how I should have cut him out. But I didn't think the feelings would just disappear. I thought the year we weren't really in contact had made them go away. However, Paul already has heard the whole and complete story, including what Roger said 5 years ago. He thinks I'm lying, however, when I say there is nothing between Roger and I now. Should I still push the issue with Paul and try and make him talk to me? He's heard everything already, he just refuses to believe me. Update, I want to thank everyone so much for commenting. Before I post what happened, I just want to address a few things that I didn't get to in the first post. First, Paul knew I was having coffee with Roger. It wasn't some kind of secret thing. Paul has female friends he has lunch or coffee with alone too, so this isn't unusual in our relationship. Second, Paul did not know that Roger had said he loved me 5 years ago. I definitely made a mistake not telling him that, but honestly, it was so long ago and to my, obviously wrong, knowledge was old history. We did not extensively discuss our past, so there wasn't really a natural point where it would have come up, and it just never occurred to me to say anything. Finally, Roger and I did not have a particularly intense friendship. It's not like we were texting constantly or best buddies. We hung out occasionally and would be in touch if something relevant came up, but we didn't just chat randomly. Anyway, with that having been said, I took the advice of some Redditors, and when I was a little calmer IFB messaged Roger asking him why he lied. He responded with "What do you mean?" at which point I started pressing him harder. He responded only with one-word answers, and honestly didn't reply to most of my messages at all, no matter how much I asked, and never actually said any definitive statement of "yes, I lied for such and such reason." Finally, I sent him a definitive statement that said I'd never had an affair with him, that I was incredibly hurt and angry, that our friendship was over and that he was never to contact me again. He replied okay, and that was that. I sent the entire FB conversation to Paul, not thinking it would help save us but just to try and clear my name. In the message, I asked him if Roger's reactions to my questions and my response to Roger was in line with what he would expect if Roger's accusations were true. Paul didn't respond that day, but the next day he called me. Paul basically said that the more he thought about it, the more he believed me, and that the conversation between Roger and I helped him believe that. That Roger's responses didn't make sense and that he now thought nothing had gone on. However, he said despite that the trust was broken between us and he couldn't be with me. I got pretty mad and yelled at him, asking why I was being punished for nothing, and he just basically disengaged from the discussion. Not my finest moment, I know, I was just so overwhelmed with frustration. We did eventually end the conversation calmly, if not amiably, and he is dropping off the stuff that I had left at his apartment later this week. I learned my lesson. Not only will any declaration of interest by a friend end that friendship, forever, but I will never date someone who has trust issues or a history of being cheated on again. I'm sure I come across as a little bitter about this, but honestly I feel like there was absolutely no point to my fidelity and honesty during those 3 years. I got treated like a cheater whether or not I cheated, and both Paul and I ended up hurt and alone despite being 100% faithful. Better to end up alone or stick to FWB than end up investing another 3 years in a relationship to have this be the conclusion. TL, Doctor, Paul and I are done. Roger and I are done. Comments, coffee, I can't understand Roger. How does he live with himself? I could never do that to someone. Op, I suspect, based on what I know of Roger, that he got angry when I rejected him and impulsively sent the message to Paul. He's not, usually, a psycho, so I'm betting that after a bit he realized how terrible what he had done was, and that is why he avoided me / refused to talk to me when I FB messaged him. Why he wouldn't apologize or try and make it right, I have no idea. Assassin 30, not only will any declaration of interest by a friend end that friendship, forever, this is just a side note. The main thing is you're rid of both these sources of drama, good for you, but I'm a guy who has declared interest in people and then gone on to be good friends after being rejected. As in, really just friends. So I'd choose carefully, because perhaps you'll write some decent people off if you have a blanket rule. I totally get why you feel that way though. I thought that this would be possible, but honestly I got a ton of comments, and still am getting them, saying how ridiculous I was to ever imagine I could continue to have someone in my life who once confessed feelings for me. A lot of people have pointed out that by allowing Roger to be a friend or a part of my life at all was a huge mistake, and frankly, looking at the result, I have to agree. I may write off some decent people, which would be a shame, but this has convinced me that I can't allow anyone in my life that might be holding or have at some point held feelings for me if I don't return them. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Found out my wife of 5 years was cheating on me with her ex-fiancé when he died, and she had a breakdown. Now she's playing the victim in our divorce. When I first met my wife, we were head over heels in love with each other, and both of us knew almost instantly that we were meant to be together. My wife ended up getting pregnant while we were still dating, and we figured the right thing to do would be to get married. Everything felt natural for the first 5 years of our relationship. We were happily married and we had a child together that we both loved dearly. I had a great job and she stayed at home and took care of our child. Before we got together, she was actually engaged to another man. From what I was told, she broke things off with him a couple of weeks before I met her. She told me it just didn't feel right and she didn't want to be with him. So, she broke up with him and moved out of his house. After that, she went out to a bar with her best friend, and that's where she met me. I always thought the timing of it was perfect. I thought it was fate. Had she not broken things off with that guy, we would have never been together and I wouldn't have had the perfect life that I did. I travel quite a bit for my job, which was never much of an issue with us. At the most, I would be gone from home for 2 or 3 days a month, and they were always weekdays. I was adamant with my employer that I wanted to be able to spend the weekends with my family so we could make memories together. The first instance that I noticed something was off was when T was on a short work trip. I had to fly into Montana for a meeting with a client, but they ended up canceling at the last minute while I was there due to a family emergency. I decided I'd take the extra time and surprise my family with a weekend trip to the beach or something. I got on the next flight home and called my wife when I arrived at the airport. She didn't answer the first couple of times that I called. That was very unlike her. She would always be by her phone, and not answering was strange. Eventually, she picked up the phone to see what was going on. She seemed annoyed that I called her. She rarely ever had that tone with me, especially when I was out of town. I asked her if everything was okay and she kind of snapped at me to tell me that it was. I told her that I was in an Uber on my way home and she seemed shocked. I heard a lot of shuffling around in the background, but at the time I assumed she was moving around. I never thought anything suspicious was happening. She got off the phone with me, and when I arrived home she was very disheveled. Her cheeks were pink like she had been running around, and she was wearing some pajama shorts and a sweater that was on inside out. I knew that being alone with the kid was sometimes exhausting, but it didn't seem like that was the issue. I asked her if everything was alright and she told me that it was. She was just surprised to see me so early. I told her about my plan to spend the weekend by the beach, and she immediately rushed off to start packing so we could leave in the morning. She seemed relieved to get away from me. I unpacked my work stuff and went to pack some garments for the trip, and I found a black sock that I didn't think was mine. I picked it up and showed it to my wife, asking what it was. It was a suspicious thing to find. She was confused about what I was asking, swearing that the sock was mine. I'm not going to lie, she was the one who handled all of the laundry in the house. She bought a lot of my clothes and probably knew my wardrobe better than I did. I told her that I didn't think it was mine, but she was steadfast in saying that it was mine. Eventually, I gave up and I believed what she said. I figured she would know better than me about it. Several months passed and I didn't notice anything else going on. I had completely forgotten about the sock thing by that point. One day I came home from work early and I found my wife in our bathtub crying. There was no water in the bath and she was fully clothed, just hiding in the bathtub crying. I immediately rushed over to her and asked her what was going on, checking on her to make sure she was okay. She was almost nonverbal and unable to communicate what was happening to me. I was freaking out and I rushed around the house to check on our kid to make sure they were all right. I called her mom and asked what was going on. She didn't know either. My first instinct was that somebody had died. But when I spoke to her mother, the person who would have likely elicited that reaction out of her, I started to think something else was going on. I checked our Ring camera footage to make sure nobody broke into the house, but I didn't find anything there. The only thing that was left for me to do was look at her phone and see if that was any sign of what was going on. It wasn't something I was doing to try to catch her in anything. My wife was hysterical and crying and I needed to figure out what was going on so I could help her. She had it with her in the bathtub and I went over to her to grab it from her hands. She put up a little bit of a fight giving it to me. I unlocked it and the screen that it was open to was a message exchange between her and a man we will call Tim. The messages were all very romantic in nature. They were telling each other that they loved each other, that they missed each other, and how excited they were to be together when I went away the following week. I didn't know what to do. My wife was hysterically crying in the bathtub and I cared about her, and that was heartbreaking to see. but I had also just found out that she was cheating on me. That didn't even explain why she was crying the way that she was. Their messages didn't end with a breakup or anything like that. While I was looking, a message from her best friend, let's call her Carol, came through. I didn't read the message, but I called her right away and asked her if she knew about what was going on. I told her that I knew all about Tim and I just needed to know why my wife was crying in the bathtub. Carol told me that Tim was my wife's ex-fiancé. They had reconnected and were seeing each other. The reason my wife was crying was because Tim had died. I felt so many different emotions at that time. It's honestly so unexplainable how I felt. I was angry and heartbroken about the affair, but I felt for my wife because I did love her, but I was so mad at her. I wanted to reach out and help her, but I also wanted to be as far away from her as I possibly could. I told Carol that she needed to come over and tend to my wife because I didn't think I could. I walked out of the bathroom and my wife yelled after me, begging for me to come back and be with her. I packed a bag for our kids so we could go stay at my parents' house for a few days. They didn't need to be around my wife while she was mourning. It would likely be pretty jarring for them. When Carol came over, I left. She tried to explain to me what was happening before I could leave, but I didn't want to listen to her either. Carol was my wife's best friend, but we were on good terms. I would joke around with Carol, and I invited her out for dinner and drinks with us all the time. I felt betrayed that she even lied to me about the affair. I explained everything to my parents when we were at their house and they gave me some really good advice about the matter. I felt bad about my decision to walk away from her, but they told me that she already made the decision for me. Even though I knew she was mourning, I couldn't be with her. She betrayed our marriage and the only thing left for me to do was leave her. She made her choice and I wasn't responsible for her emotions after she hurt me. I gave her the weekend at home alone to deal with everything she had too. When I returned the following week to gather some of my belongings, she begged for the chance to explain herself to me and work on the problems. I told her that there was no explaining that she was telling another man that she loved him and sleeping with him behind my back. However, I did find out that she actually was still engaged to her fiancé when we met. She and I had been dating for an entire month before she broke things off with him. I was supposed to just be a fling, but then he found out about me and they broke up. I don't know if she thought that was going to make the situation any better, but it certainly didn't. I knew then that she had been a liar throughout the entirety of our marriage. I told her that I was leaving her and that there was no swaying my mind on the matter. I knew that she was still very emotional from Tim's death, but that wasn't any of my concern. I started filing for divorce, and as I was doing that, so many people from my life reached out to me and tried to make me out as a villain. My wife had been telling everybody that I left her after she found out somebody close to her died. She was withholding the fact that she found out the man she was cheating on me with died. I made sure to clarify that to everybody who reached out to me so they knew the truth. I wasn't going to let her lie about me and make everybody we knew think I was some awful man. After that, everybody saw how manipulative she could be, and from what I understand she lost a lot of friends in our town. The only person who stuck by her was Carol, who was the only other person who knew about the affair when it was happening. We ended up getting divorced and I kept the house and all of our assets. She moved in with her parents and comes by on the weekends to see our child.